What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Didn't Ask podcast. As always, I'm your host Djimon, and today I will be diving back into the world of Reddit to see what the people asked Reddit and didn't ask me. We're back once again. I've been doing this for many weeks now. This is episode 12, but I have a confession I need to make. I realized last week that one of the earlier episodes had some type of render issue which made the episode unlistenable. So I went back in, did all the work, and I luckily was able to fix the issue. Yay me. So that means that episode 9, which is entitled Cave Drawings, Real Life Game Huts, and An Unprofessional Doctor, is now once again live. You can listen to it fully normally, at least it should be. And if not, you should go to anchor.fm /didn't-ask-pod, and then you will be able to listen to the episode right there. But again, I did my best to fix the episode. It should be up and running now. So hopefully, you can listen to it and you will enjoy that episode. But enough about those episodes in the past. Let's talk about this episode right here. Today, once again, I have 5 inquiries from the Ask Reddit subreddit and 1 inquiry from the Am I the Asshole subreddit. Before we begin though, I have to say it's been really busy in my street this morning, and there's constantly traffic going by and work being done. So if you hear anything in the background, I do sincerely apologize for that. That's something that's sadly out of my control. I'll try my best to, work this out in the editing software, but not always will I be able to, get the full result out of that. But enough with this blabbering. I hope you had a good week, and I hope I can make it a little better with this podcast. Let's jump to the first question of today. Asked by user, oh man, why do you do this to me? Cut-tight Permula. Let's leave it at that. Cut-tight Permula. And they ask, what is something that everybody looks stupid doing? And my head immediately jumped to taking off socks. Because taking off your socks is something that there is no real good way of doing it. Like if you have shoes on, you can like kick them off and you can slip your foot out, and then you kind of look still kind of cool, you know what I mean? And for other clothing parts, there are also like really fun ways you can, take off your shirt. You can do very sexy, I don't know. You can let it fall down, whatever. But taking off your socks is something that's so mundane and is so weird to do, because 9 out of 10 times, at least for me, I wear sneaker socks, which means that they're like up to my ankle, which means that they're tight as well, and there is no real way for me to like slip a toe in there or whatever, which means that you're gonna have to bend over and like put your finger in there and slip them off, and it looks kind of fucking stupid. So that would be my answer to the question. But I just jumped into the comments of this question because sometimes I like to do that, you know what I mean? Just like to see what the people are saying. And some of the Redditors have some really fun comments. Some of them being chasing after something blown away by the wind. And I totally agree with this statement. If you have, I don't know, some money that flew out of your pocket and you see that going away, or something that, I don't know, a plastic bag or something that you want to pick up, it looks so fucking stupid because it seems like you're like a cat or something like that, especially with something that's a little smaller, that's rolling down the hill or something, that you just try to grab it and grab it and grab it, and it's not working because it's going faster and faster or whatever, and it's getting further and further away from you. So it just looks really stupid for you just chasing after this object that just keeps getting away, and you're just trying to get it. You're trying to get it, but you're still not able to do so. So yeah, that would probably be my answer to that question too. Something that got blown away by the wind. That would be a great answer to that question. I didn't think of it at first, but you know, that's a good one. Thinking about that now, something that also looks very stupid while you're doing it is when you trip over basically nothing. Like when you walk down the street and like maybe a street tile is not properly placed or whatever, and you just try and walk over it, you don't see it because it's just slightly raised, and then you hit it with your toe and then you basically trip and fall forward. That's something that also looks fucking stupid, especially because the other person that sees you doing it probably doesn't even see that the tiles are uneven or that they moved or whatever. So those would be my two answers to you. Cut tight Permula. What is something that everyone looks stupid doing? Personally, I would say taking off your socks, because it's just such a mundane task, and you know, there's very little you can do to make it look interesting or sexy or whatever. And then two would be when you're walking down the street and a tile is misplaced just slightly, so you hit it with your shoe and then you trip over it because it looks like you fell over nothing. Then, of course, the comment by the Redditors, chasing something that's blown away, that's such a good answer to that question too. So I have to mention that one. Let's go to the next question of today. You can choose any famous person in the world to show up at your funeral to cause the biggest confusion possible. Who do you pick and why? So, of course, like, we've been waiting for a Fast and Furious movie for a very long time. So my head jumped immediately to Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel is such an interesting character, just as a whole. He talks, I don't want to say he talks funny, but like he has like a specific way of talking. He seems high all the fucking time. So that would be such a fun thing to have at my funeral. I don't know, this assuming of course that Vin Diesel would be Vin Diesel now and I would be whatever. But Vin Diesel at my wedding, at my funeral, at my wedding would even be better. But Vin Diesel at my funeral would be so confusing because I've never met Vin Diesel to begin with. I've never interacted with Vin Diesel in the slightest. So having him at my funeral is very confusing in that way. But him just being high out of his fucking mind, drinking some Coronas, sitting there mourning my death, or maybe not even that, maybe it's just chilling there, I don't know, and just say, hey, Djimon was family, it's family. That would be absolutely hilarious, and I'm sad that I couldn't be there to witness it, but that would be a great answer, in my opinion. Another one would be Macklemore. Macklemore is an artist that I've listened to quite a few hours, I would say. I've listened to the I don't even know what the album is called. One of the earlier albums, quite a few times. It has Thrift Shop on there, one of his biggest hits, and I've listened to that album quite a couple of times. But ever since then, I've not really interacted with his music much. So yeah, it would be really interesting to have him at my funeral, just because I've not really, interacted with any of his properties in a very long time. So yeah, it would be interesting for him to sing Thrift Shop at my funeral or something. I don't know. So yeah, it's totally cromulent. I forgot to mention your name up front, but here you go. User, it's totally cromulent. You can choose any famous person in the world to show up at your funeral to cause the biggest confusion possible. Who do you pick and why? And I would probably pick Vin Diesel, because Vin Diesel is an interesting character. We have very little in common. He seems high all the time, loves to drink Corona. And he's family. I think that's the biggest thing we have in common. He's family. He's family. So yeah, for him to say that at my funeral, that would be the greatest send-off a human can actually ask for. Thank you for your question. Quickly moving on to the third question of today, and this one has been labeled with serious replies only, which very interesting. And the question is, would you ever not date someone because of their political views and stances or various social public issues? Why or why not? And this is a very fun question in my opinion, or an interesting one at least, especially because I have not really been in a real relationship ever. The last relationship I had was basically fucking 10 years ago at this point. So, you know, I don't really have much to say about relationships as a whole, but I can, you know, sprinkle some pepper on this question, I would say, because it's about, you know, if you would date somebody. In this case, would not date somebody for their political views. And I think that there is like this spectrum, so to speak, with dating a person that has a different political belief than you have. Personally, I wouldn't mind for the person to have a different political view or some political different views, but some things are just basic human rights, basically. Like if you're against gay marriage, or if you're against, I don't know, just same-sex marriage as a whole, or, you know, against the whole gender identity spiel that's going on now, and I'm calling it a spiel, which sounds really bad, and I don't want it to spiel like that. But, you know, the whole situation that's going on right now, just the LGBTQ movement, if you will. If you're against that, then for me that makes this relationship really hard. And just pretending that to be with that person just because I like that person, but if you look really deeply into that, is that if you don't care for other people, in that way, I should say, because I don't really give a fuck about other people 10 times, and that's why, and this is always the fun thing with the LGBTQ plus rights, because some people are just like, oh, I don't care about other people, and then it's just like, well, if you don't care about other people, why the fuck would you care that they get married or that they call themselves men, female, anything in between that? Because I don't really care. And this is gonna sound bad again. It's like if as long as it's not bothering me, so to speak, as long as I'm not attacked for anything that I'm doing, why the fuck would I attack you for what you're doing? So, yeah, if you're having an issue with that, then this relationship is gonna be really hard. Especially just even with the fact that I'm not queer or identify as anything in the LGBTQ plus community. I'm just an ally, you know what I mean? I just want people to be happy and make sure that people have the same experiences in life that I have. That be just life as a whole, you know, living it or having a romantic relationship. Even though I don't have one right now, but still. But yeah, so like I feel like there is like this spectrum where there is conversation that can be had about some stances of, you know, like immigrants, or how money has to be dispersed and displaced, and how government has, you know, some higher power that they should not have. So I think that there is like a little conversation to be had between us both, and I think that would make things a little interesting. But I just don't want to be angry at my spouse for whatever, you know what I mean? So as long as it's not fully outrageous, I think I can manage to, you know, be in a relationship with somebody that has a different political view. But again, If the political view is so drastic, then I just have to tap out, and I'm just gonna say, well, this is not gonna work out because we're just thinking about things differently. One of them, of course, being like for like abortus and stuff like that. If you want to abort a child, that's like such a big step for a woman to take. So why the fuck would I say that she can't do it? Should there be rules and regulations to that? Of course, because there are rules and regulations to everything. But to say drastically like, hey, you can't do this, like some people are saying, that's just outrageous to me. So yeah, that would be the answer to your serious question, user Frosty_Eloquence. Would you ever not date somebody because of their political views and stances on various social public issues? Why not? And the answer would be, there is some form of conversation that we can have about your political stances, but if our political views are so drastically different from each other, then I think it's going to be really hard for us to have a healthy and safe relationship. Thank you for your question. And the fourth question of the day comes from user ram_exe. And they ask, what's the loneliest thing you've ever done? And I think the loneliest thing I've ever done was to go to Toronto. I've mentioned this a couple of times on this podcast before. The fact is, it's just like, we have been home for over a year. We are hitting about a year and 3 months here. I think that's approximately where we're at now. Maybe it's 2 months, and then this is going to be the third, but you get the point. So I have not really done much in the meantime. So all the stories refer to, before the pandemic. BP, if you want to call that, before pandemic. But so yeah, one of the things, so I went to Toronto, Canada, again for professional wrestling. I wanted to watch that, so I went there, had a blast of a time, but it was very lonely because this was the first trip I took that was really far and me actually going overseas. I've been to London a couple of times, but that would be like a weekend and I get in, get out type things. You'll be home very quickly. With the Toronto trip, I was gone basically for a week, which really fucked me up in the end. And it was very lonely in the sense that, you have no one to talk to on a daily basis, even though I really tried to stay connected with my family back home, and making sure that, they knew that I was okay. But just doing everything by yourself is such a weird thing. Because I, of course, went to the wrestling shows, which I don't really care for if I am with somebody. Because, it's, to me, wrestling shows are basically like cinema experiences. Where it's just like, well, I like to watch it, maybe have a reaction here and there, but not really, talk to anybody about it. And that's probably mostly because I'm the only person of the people I know that is really into professional wrestling. But just going to restaurants alone is such a weird thing. And then I went to a comedy show, and that's something that you will really want to talk to somebody about. And that was just really hard for me at the time, where it was just like, well, I would like to, talk to somebody and maybe have a drink after the show. And, you want to assess what happened during this comedy show, which you actually can't because, there is nobody to talk to. So yeah, that was a little bit lonely. Again, I had a blast of a time, and it's an experience of a lifetime that I had. But just going to restaurants alone, going to that comedy show alone was such a weird situation, and especially being the first time I went so far abroad in my lonesome, actually kind of fucked me up for that moment. So yeah, user ram_exe, what's the loneliest thing you've ever done? And it was my trip to Toronto, Canada, where I had nobody to talk to really the whole week that I was there. and I had to go to restaurants alone, and that is such a weird situation. Luckily, I'm a pretty, like a pretty lonesome person. I can, be alone quite well. And I had some music and podcasts to keep me company, but it still was such a weird situation to do for such a long time, relatively to the trips I've taken before. Thank you for your question. And now we're gonna just spice this up a little bit. The last couple of questions were a little sad, they get the mood down, but we're gonna take the mood quickly back up with the question from user Parrot.fan1, and they ask, people of Reddit who grew up on cartoons, what is your favorite cartoon? And man, I grew up on cartoons so badly. Like, there are so many cartoons that I still think about on a weekly basis, and all ranging from cartoons to anime that has been imported, and you name it. But the first thing that came to mind was the show Kids Next Door, which is a Cartoon Network show, and it was such a fun show for me to watch. If you don't know, Kids Next Door is a show about a group of, from the top of my head, I think there were 5 kids that were basically like secret agents type. It was such a fun thing, and they had cool gadgets, and they were fighting some other, organization, and they all had like numbered names, and the whole universe was such an interesting way of looking at how kids, grew up and how they reacted to things and whatever. So that's one of the shows that I grew up watching and absolutely loving. Another cartoon that I really loved watching was Action Man Adam. And Action Man Adam is such a, I would say, obscure show. It's Action Man Adam, so it's based on the Action Man property, and Action Man is also like an animated TV show that I've watched many times when I was a child. And Action Man Adam was like more of a Power Rangers type, group up between a couple of these, like buff guys and gals, and they would fight crime and whatever. And I absolutely fucking love that show. Another one, of course, Totally Spies. Who didn't watch Totally Spies? You know what I mean? If you say that you didn't watch Totally Spies, you're either super young or you were just not paying attention to TV, because Totally Spies was fucking everywhere. Another one, I'm just gonna ramble off so many fucking shows here, but I just love cartoons so much. Another one is Shaman King, which is not a cartoon. It's an anime, I know that, but it was dubbed for me, so kind of counts as a cartoon, I guess. And Shaman King was so fun, and the theme song of the show, so great, and I had a DVD that would go with me everywhere I went to watch it everywhere I could. And Netflix is bringing the show back. They're rebooting it, remaking the whole season, new graphics and everything, and I'm so excited to jump back into the world of Shaman King. And finally, I have to make a mention of this show, and that's gonna be Total Drama Island. I'm saying this because Netflix just put the 2nd season of Total Drama Island on it over here, so I'm very excited to jump back into that show, because Total Drama Island had so many great memories for me. And Total Drama Island is one of these shows that I feel like has laid the groundwork for me loving reality TV right now. Because if you don't know, Total Drama Island is basically a cartoon version of a, like a Survivor type show. We call it Expedition Robinson here, where you have contestants doing certain tasks and certain challenges, and then doing confessional interviews, and it's so fun. So I cannot wait to go back to sadly it's season 2, but who gives a fuck? I'm gonna go back to season 2 and see what the fuck is up with that. and if it still holds up as well as I remember it. So, user Peridot-fan1, people of Reddit who grew up on cartoons, what is your favorite cartoon? And I just rambled off a whole list. Action Man Adam, Total Drama Island, Kids Next Door, Totally Spies, Shaman King, even though Shaman King is more of an anime, not a cartoon, but who cares? Oh, and I forgot to mention Huntic. Huntic is such a fucking great show. If I have to explain what Huntic is, I would say simply that Huntic is a show where it basically combines the world of Uncharted with the world of Pokemon. So there are historical figures that you can use in combat. It's fucking great. I watched it not that long ago. It came on Netflix and I rewatched the 2 seasons from front to back all the way through and I had an amazing time. So I had to mention that show. Thank you for your question. And now going on to the final inquiry of the day. And if you know, you know. This one comes from Am I the Asshole and was asked by user Daughter's Books. And they ask, am I the asshole for only buying my daughter books that are close to her reading level? My daughter Rose, 9 years old, is a very advanced reader. She's in 3rd grade, 8 to 9 years old, but reads at a 9th grade level, 14 to 15 years old. Despite her advanced reading level, the only books she wants to read are the I Survived series and the A to C mysteries. Both of these books are far below her reading level, so I told her it's fine if she wants to read them in school, but at home she has to read things closer to her level. I've taken her to bookstores and we've looked through the adult section, but she refuses to read any of the books. She says they're all boring and gross. She always asks to get books from the children's section, but I've said no because they're too easy for her. Rosa started sneaking books home from school, and when I started taking those away, she stops reading in general. Now, Rose has pulled away from me and her teacher is recommending that I let her read whatever she wants. Rose's dad, my ex, found out about this and tore into me for not letting Rose read books for kids her age and offered to send her books, but that's not the problem. I don't have a problem with Rose reading, but if she's going to read, she should read something close to her level. Now everyone's mad at me, so I wanted to know if I was the asshole. And I'm gonna have to say, Daughter's Books, you are a little bit of the asshole. I understand what you want your daughter to do is to, advance her reading and whatever. But as you already said yourself, by taking away the joys of reading, your daughter just doesn't want to read at all anymore. Which now that is even worse than the thing that I assume that you were assuming. That, by reading lower grade books, that her reading would go backwards. Which I can tell you that is not the case. Her reading the books that are meant for 14 and 15-year-olds is such a hard thing for her to understand, because not only are those books harder, and even though she, like you said, she has such an advanced level of reading that she could probably read it and maybe understand it, but you also have to understand that your daughter is 9 and 9-year-old kid has way different life experiences and wants and needs in life than a 14 or 15-year-old. So if your daughter really wants to read the I Survived series and A to C mysteries, please let her just do it. Because that way she is still keeping that reading muscle trained. And maybe the thing that's going to happen is maybe she's going to just tear through those books in a day. But that's fine. You just get her new books. Get her a subscription to the library and let her just tear through all those books. And when she's ready to go up in, the grade levels, let her just go up. It's a kid. Let the kid be a kid. And that's something that some adults seem to forget sometimes. I know that you want the best thing for your daughter, but the best thing comes in different forms. And in this case, you look at it as, oh, she needs to read something that's on her level. But realistically speaking, the best thing for your daughter to do right now is to just enjoy reading and make sure that she reads stories that connect with her on a more emotional level and not necessarily on an intellectual level, so to speak. It's like with me with watching TV. Like, I can watch a documentary because I can understand it and it's gonna teach me something maybe. But sometimes it's just nice to just sit back and watch a reality show and just don't care what anybody else is thinking and not worry about the subject matter and how hard it could be and, you name it. So, daughter's books. Am I the asshole for only buying my daughter books that are close to her reading level? I would say yes, because by doing that, you're taking away her youth, you're taking away her enjoyment of books, and you're forcing her into a section of her life that she is not ready for yet. Because, like I said, a 8 to 9-year-old has such different life experiences than a 14 to 15-year-old, especially 14 to 15-year-old that are in puberty and, start having romantic relationships with each other. And that's something that your daughter is not ready for, I would assume, especially not at the age of 9. And that's probably why she says their books are gross. So I would say just let your daughter read the books she wants to read so she keeps having fun, and don't punish her for reading, because that's what it sounds like now. You're punishing her for reading what she wants to read. You're punishing her for her enjoying what she does. And that's such a bad thing to do for a parent. So, yeah, thank you for your question. And that has been it for this week's episode of the Didn't Ask podcast. I hope you had a great time. I hope I made your day a little bit better, and by that, also your week a little bit better. I will be back next week with more questions from the Ask Reddit subreddit, and of course, a question from the Am I the Asshole subreddit. In the meantime, if you want to ask me a question, go to anchor.fm/didn't-ask-pod. The link to that will be in the show description, and also in the YouTube description. And you can ask me a question personally over there, and if you ask that question over there, I will be able to answer your question. Also, in the meantime, if you want to know what I'm watching, go to trek.tv and see what I'm watching. Of course, that link will also be in this show description and in the YouTube description for this episode. So you're going to be all fine and dandy over there. Now, I want to wish you a great week, and I'll see you back next time. Goodbye.